Up next, we have Ariele Elia in conversation with Veronica Webb and Bethann Hardison.
So it's such a pleasure when organizing the exhibition to work with both of these women. They both have extraordinary careers, and we were fortunate enough to feature both of them in our model and diversity discussion. So to get going on that, so to get,
as long as I'm well lit, I could be on fire.
So Bethann, I want to start with you because you entered into the industry right when many black models were really breaking into the mainstream, and you've had an extraordinary career. Can you explain a little bit about your experience when you started modeling and throughout?
When I started modeling, that was the late 60s. No, yes, it was the late 60s. I was different, so it was different. So I was someone who came along that didn't look like and I was a runway model, so there wasn't the time when you had print girls also doing the same job that we did. They never came into our industry per se. They never worked for designers and things. They stayed in the area of print photography, and we were the ones who serviced the industry of apparel. So when I came along, it was really like, I was like the odd bird. People were like, what? Because I had short hair and very skinny, and I didn't have what the other girls had. So it was a very interesting thing for me. So I had my little bumps in the road getting through it with some of the most renowned designers, like a Bill Blass, or at those times with people who really were, you looked at the girls who were more glamorous. I was coming along at an edgy moment. But once I helped, and me and say Ellen Harth and people like that who came from Rudy Gurdenreich, and basically started her agency, then we start to open up, in the world of the 70s, start to change everything.
And when I was putting together the slideshow, something new that I had learned is that you had modeled for Issey Miyake. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah. Issey was someone that I modeled for, yes, and I also helped to produce his shows. I also worked with Kenzai Yamamoto, another Japanese designer, very closely. Issey was someone who was, he's like a brother, he became that to me. He appreciated what I did for him on the runway, but he also appreciated my ideas. So it was really kind of good. And that's what we were talking about before, about being a muse. When you can become a muse to a designer, it's something that's gone by the wayside now. The girls don't get an opportunity to work with designers so closely. They don't get a chance to influence the designer. They don't get a chance to do anything because they have casting directors and stylists, and everybody's telling everybody what to do, and don't walk, don't shake your hips, don't smile, and you don't have that intimacy, which was great about me working with Yves Saint Laurent or any of those designers. It was kind of great because they really relied on, when the girl came in, she gave energy to the clothes. It was different.
And Veronica, your career has really expanded internationally. Can you tell us a little bit about your modeling career and how it might be similar or different to Bethann's?
Well, when I came into the industry, there was Bethann to give me confidence. And I grew up looking at magazines. I already saw people that looked like Iman, that looked like Beverly Johnson, that looked like Janice Dickinson, that looked like Phoebe Cates. So I felt like, even though it was so remote and so far away that I could ever go to New York and be that glamorous and wear those clothes and be in those environments and look like I belong and had that much money. And then, you put on also the barrier that I was born in '65, so I grew up with the idea that race was a huge limitation and kept you from going places, and said that you couldn't wear red lipstick or go to fancy restaurants or be in Paris. So when I came to New York, and here's Bethann, and she's an agent, and she was a model, and she's edgy, and she's different, and I came out of art school, and I liked alternative things, and I didn't wear makeup, and Bethann is like dark skin and beautiful, and she looks at me and she sees a beautiful black woman. I'm not too light for her, I'm not too dark for her, but I'm black and I'm beautiful, and she says, let's do this, kid. You're gonna become a model. That's how my career was different from hers, and she has been my champion. My titan, a guide, a mother figure, a mentor to me for almost, I don't know how long, over 30 years now. And you know what? And here we are. We always find ourselves together. Here we are.
This is true. You know, one thing I want to tell you that was interesting too, because there was another young girl that was a friend, became friends of hers, and I wanted her to go to Europe. I said, I want you to go to Europe, but I want you to go to Paris. Well, she and the young girl, like kids do, they go off and they talk. They said, no, let's go to Italy. Let's go to Italy. And they go to Italy, and she tries to start her career in Italy. You remember this?
Yes, I do.
And it was a disaster.
Well, you know what it was? I had a place in Paris where I could go. I had an agency who would take me, but I didn't know anyone, and I didn't have anywhere to live. And Colleen had a place to go in Italy, and she said, let's go to Italy, it'll be easier. And so we went to Italy, and it just wasn't the moment for me there. I mean, it all has to be, it's all fairy dust and magic and kismet, and 100 billion things have to go right. And
Yeah, but the great thing about that world too is that she's right. It is that moment, because sometimes it's also that market.
Yes.
And that market isn't as inviting. But the luck of having someone who thought like me in Paris, who basically received Veronica, and it was like off to the races. It was she and you and Fabienne just went,
yeah.
so it is that opportunity when you get there. But it really blew my mind how well and how wonderfully she took off.
So that leads me to my next question. Over time, how have you seen the modeling industry change?
Ugh.
How have I seen the modeling industry change? They need us to speak closer to the mic. These are the notes that we're getting. The way I see the modeling industry change, Bethann touched on it before by saying that there's not the same amount of interaction with models and designers as before. I mean, to me, designers are the most important part of the industry, and I have the utmost respect for them. I feel like without designers, there's nothing. I feel like they're the genesis, they're the nexus lexus of what the whole business is about. And for me, growing up as someone whose mother made all her clothes, I know how clothes are made, and I really respect it. So, being a muse to Azadine and to Karl Lagerfeld and to Isaac Mizrahi and to Marc Jacobs, and spending hours and hours and hours in fittings, and having all this energy and excitement that goes into every single dress, that's kind of missing now. I feel like because there's a lesser place for models now, and that's both a good and a bad thing, and I think it's because of the internet and self-publishing, and anyone immediately can say, this is my idea of fashion and how it should be presented, and this is my fantasy world of how I'm going to get up and dress every day. And so you can now put that up instantly anywhere on Instagram or the internet. So it's more democratic, and I find it really exciting to look at so many different viewpoints in terms of fashion and not be as dictated to, but it does reduce the role and the need for models in many, many ways, not just creatively, but also, if you notice now, when you look at .com sites, it's headless. You see just the clothes from here down. And that's sort of a good thing too, because now there's so many other girls who, would die to model and just, love to get dressed and love to be in the lights. And they have a chance to do it. And they don't have to fly to Paris and fit perfect measurements and have, a really robust creative vocabulary for walking runways and being in pictures, but they can be in the business, they can get a taste of it and get a piece of the action.
Well, I don't think, I agree, she's absolutely right, obviously, because look out there. But the point of it really is, for me, is that's not the business. That's a different branch on that tree that was the apparel industry. And if anyone could be in it, then there's no more mystique. The glamour of being in fashion is really that. It's just, it's really it's really like it used to be a tiny little island that very few people knew about, and we just produced things, and nobody cared. But when you think about anyone can be a model and you can be discovered on this, it's not the same industry anymore. I feel bad for the people who have model agencies now. I feel bad for people who want to be models now. And those who can be a model on the internet, I laugh, but I say, you ain't a model. And then I'm a model if I stand in a garage. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm a car, then I'm a car. You know what I mean? I just think, oh man, I'm so glad I don't have that. Why do we get over here? Okay, next question.
But you know what? And I
It's a
100%
mess.
agree with Bethann, but I think that you will never, ever, ever find a world where people don't want to see someone who out the box looks like Iman or Doutzen or Leah Kaviti. We always have a hunger for that.
That's very true, but you can't develop talent like you used to.
No, no way.
We could develop talent, and that's where it's gone amiss. So, I keep encouraging kids to, get into technology or, go to Budapest and sit in a cafe and write a book, anything. But don't want to be them. I didn't want, when these kids came to me, you really had to have something that I saw for me to say, okay. I said no to a lot of people that walked out that door calling me every name in the sun. And every parent wrote me and thanked me because those kids went on to go to school, universities, and done greater things. And I get many great notes for that. But we couldn't develop a girl like Veronica. We wouldn't have had that kind of, it was so great to be able to do that for photographers. You don't have that. So they are going back to the other girls that were there before. Because, you know what I mean? I don't want to talk about it anymore.
So jumping into models and diversity, you had founded a very important coalition, the Diversity Coalition, really putting pressure on the fashion industry to incorporate more diversity. In your opinion, whose responsibility is it? Is it the casting directors, the designers, magazines, media? Whose responsibility is it to have more diversity in fashion?
I always say, I would say this privately, but never publicly, but here we go, because we're just friends, right? So I'm going to tell you that I always blame the model agencies. I mean, they don't like that I say that, but I do. I always think that model agencies need to fight for what they see in front of them, that if the girl is good, if the boy is good, take them and fight to get them through. That's what you do. I mean, I did it, but I also did it at a different time, right? So it's not fair to sort of say, well, that was different. But no one had done it before. Nobody was pushing. The good news, I had a white model agency with black kids in it, Latin kids in it, Asian kids in it. So I knew what was going on. No one could say, oh, come on, you have all those black kids. No, I had the white kids that were top. And so it was kind of great to have that. Veronica was doing everything in Paris. That reflected on me, I was very proud to know, still this day I talk about how Veronica was the only model of color to ever open up Comme des Garçons, season after season after season. Ray connected to her, and that's never happened, so I'm very proud of these things. What was I talking about? I was over there.
Oh, we were talking about the Diversity Coalition and whose responsibility it is in order to create diversity within the fashion industry.
That's what I always feel like the model agency should fight harder. But now they are, because they had support. I understand that it's hard for them to do so because of the fact that it's difficult. If you have people saying no blacks, no ethnics, well, that stopped in 2007. But up until we had that press conference, they would say that to agencies, and the agencies would turn to their black talent and say, I'm so sorry, they're not using black kids. They're not using black girls this time. They're not using black boys. And somebody says, okay, and they walk away and, oh. So when people think that's not been said, they stop saying it because the press got behind us. The press went and they said between America and between the international press, they all started talking, is there racism in fashion? And nobody wants to think they're racist. So everybody backs down, and they never said that again. So you have to push. Now the industry has much more support. Now the industry, meaning the model industry, because that is different than the fashion industry, even though no one thinks so, but it is. the fact of it is that the model industry now has some more support. They feel like they see a girl, they take her, because now the work is beginning to happen more, and a girl's beginning to have a career, meaning she's not just in 2 seasons and then she's bounced out. Now she's beginning to do more and more. I mean, the casting directors, you know, if you're in this audience, you know how I feel about you. I'm not a fan. If you're a stylist that tells a designer, you know, oh, you can't put Joan Smalls opening this show, you know, you won't get editorial. You people, those stylists, I can't stand. You know, I have no respect, because you are now interfering between, like, it's like getting in the bed between a husband and a wife. The model is important to the designer. And this is the kind of thing that happens, and that's the kind of thing that disturbs me mostly, because they now have jobs, and this is what they do, and it's unfortunate for us that we have them. I mean, I'm not a designer, so easy for me to say.
I think fashion is a club, and I think that we all want to be with our friends, look like our friends, share things that make us feel wonderful with our friends. And I know that for me, starting, it was because a lot of people, like Lauren Hutton, who I became friends with, would say to a designer, hey, use her, she's cool. When Kate Moss first came and she was, you know, the size of our pinky, and you turn around and like almost knock her down at a fashion show because she was 5 feet tall, you know, it was Naomi and Christy and other people like me who liked her, who said, oh, use her, she's cool, she's great, you know, and convinced designers that that person wasn't a joke.
That's right.
As crazy as that sounds, and I really think that it's incumbent upon each one of us to open our mouths and say, this person is cool. I want to look like her. She looks like my friend. She looks like someone in my family. I would buy stuff from her because I like her attitude. And when I see something on her, it looks cool, and I want it, and I want to get a piece of that.
Yeah, that's very true, and that sounds good. But it doesn't happen like that anymore, because the fact of it is there's a stronger power, and the model agency doesn't have the power like they used to. And the model girl can have a little bit of that, like she's speaking of when she says the club. And it's true, there was that camaraderie that was really important back in the day, but it doesn't exist like that anymore, because casting directors bully. They do. They tell girls, they tell agencies, well, if you want her to be in so-and-so's show, I need her this way. Or if you ever want to do this, you better not do that. There's a lot of that going on. That's what James Scully was talking about on the business of fashion. It's inappropriate behavior, and we're going to get them. We're going to call them out with no fear.
I think they call that collusion on Wall Street.
Yeah.
So in doing my research, something that constantly came up, especially when discussing models and diversity, many designers had said that uniform skin tone is a way to to convey a cohesive, singular design idea. What is your reaction to that?
What is it?
Uniform skin tone, a singular skin tone, is a way to convey a cohesive design idea.
So in
Or
other
look.
words, that
Who said this?
there's been a number of designers that have said that if they want, that's one of their that when asked, why don't you have any black
You know it's
models
true,
or models
though.
of different
You
colors?
know it's true.
Why don't you? And they'll say that we want to create a singular, cohesive story, and that's how we do it.
Go ahead,
Veronica, do you have any reactions to that?
Well, I think that that's what hair and makeup is for. And I think that, you know, like, I'm black, Bethann is black, so, you know, there's a lot of diversity within every single solitary race of people, so you can't exclude any, you can't tell me that you can't find a diverse group of people who have different ethnic backgrounds but similar skin tones.
It's interesting. Well, you know, when they first eliminated the girl who, you know, the girls that were recognizable, let's say it that way, because that's more the way that Mutual Prada went when she was the lead horse that basically eliminated the fashion model as we knew her before and brought in all the Eastern European girls, we would say Eastern European, but girls that were not recognizable to our. So in other words, it was her point of view was to really sort of like take away all the, say, supermodel or top model or the identifiable girl. to bring it back to the clothing. So in other words, Linda Evangelista wouldn't have been in the show, or maybe then it wouldn't have been Bethann or Veronica or Naomi Campbell. It wouldn't have been anything that would distract. It was just, that's how that whole thing came, where it just looked like it was no particular personality, and all the girls looked alike. Everyone seemed like they were blonde. And that changed. Thank God she was once again, the lead horse who turned that around and got rid of that, changed the casting director, and it changed again. That whole idea, usually they used to say, it's not my aesthetic. See, everybody knows that. It's not my aesthetic. Well, okay. And well, now they're talking about, they pushed it to another level. It's very, it's just ignorance. And that's what you have to call. You know, I always say that people say, well, don't you think the industry is racist? And, you know, I'd want to say yes if I believed it. But it's worse than that. They're ignorant. And ignorance to me is far greater problem than being racist. Racist is cool. You say, you know, look, I don't want any black people in my house. You say, okay, cool, I ain't coming. I got that. You know, but if you think you want black people at your house, but you don't have any at your house, and you don't know why they're not there because you just don't invite anybody, and then when I confront you on it, then you say, well, that's not how I feel, then that's coming from a point of ignorance, because then you are actually doing something that's racist. So no matter what they say, we got them. We got them.
So diversity is a huge buzzword that we're hearing all the time. Who's getting it right? Who is really incorporating diversity either into their fashion brand, their magazines?
Well, I have to say that my friend Sophie Thiele did a fantastic show 3 years ago where people were different ages, different sizes, different races. People were in all states of womanhood, from pregnant to like recently postpartum to, and I thought that was amazing because you had me walking out at 50, someone walking out behind me at 18, someone walking out behind her at size 18. It was really interesting. And then there's a lot of designers, like we don't even talk about how black designers always have diverse shows because that's just supposed to be, well, it is supposed to be a given, but it's also supposed to be a given. Like, well, why talk about it? Because, you know, they're already diverse, they're already different, ethnic, whatever. Of course they would do that. But I think that a lot of the diversity that happens is underreported and doesn't get talked about and is not held up as an example.
And Bethann, you had done a lot of close work with Franca Susani. Can you explain a little bit about that and Vogue Italia?
Yeah, that was great. Franca was really, she's a lightning rod, you know, as we know, and she probably still is, and I feel she is. The fact that what she did some great things. I mean, when I did the first press conference about what my discomfort was, what was going on in the industry, saying no blacks, no ethnics, you know, not allowing model agencies to feel encouraged to sort of keep on trying to find talent that was diverse. That was in 2007 in September, and we had a few press conferences, and it continued after that. But Franca had also decided to do an all-black issue with Stephen Meisel. She saw the need for it, and she thought it was very important. And then what she also felt when she saw that for the first time in the history of Condé Nast, that particular magazine sold out and had a reprint 3 times, well, then she knew that she was on. She knew that there was some greatness in the fact of not lacking and not feeling like diversity was something that would be harmful to your pocket or you wouldn't continue to be successful. The great thing what Franca believed, when she believed it, she had that proof. And then she decided to go on to the digital world and do Vogue.it, and she asked me to work with her. Well, we worked together on the magazine, of course, but then she asked me to come in and do the Vogue Black, Vogue Black, and that was great because that's how much she believed. And then she had a hard time because people wouldn't support. I mean, she had to have sponsors for this, and you know, she was doing something that was off the cuff. And she would get so angry how they would feel that was just, you know, you were just not going to get money from it. You weren't going to make money, and she knew better. So that was a great thing about working with her. It's just, you know, you know, the opportunity she gave me, the editors she gave me to work with, the wonderful talent that I would find, the kids that I would interview, it was all in video, so it's really wonderful. And it made a great difference for people to see. She was mad cool, or is mad cool.
So before I open it up for questions, I want to ask both of you one last very important question. If you can try to summarize it in one sentence. Why is diversity important in the modeling industry?
Because we give people examples of hopes and dreams of where they can go and what they can become.
That's a good line. That's true. And I also believe that we help to educate those who they think that we're not needed, that diversity is not needed. I think it's important that you know, young people, young people, I'm talking about people who are 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, 8 years old, who don't even think that there's anything wrong with seeing something, brown kids. They don't even know that the kid that they like so much in their class that they adore, who's darker than them, they don't even think that they're black. They just think they're their friend. And this is what we have to keep on reminding people, that as long as we keep representing what we see image-wise, it only helps to make our society better. That's all. I mean, we just got to keep it real. That's all.
And we'll open it up for questions if anybody has any questions for Veronica or for Bethann.
Yes, Bethann. You had mentioned that the modeling industry has some new reinforcements to support diversity. Can you mention what those supports are? Because maybe they need to be applied in other areas of fashion and advertising.
Yeah, very true. You're asking me. You're asking me that we have support for the industry, and you want to know what those supports
Well,
are.
you had mentioned that there is now in place better support for diversity.
Yeah, but the only neighborhood that I stay in is the modeling industry. I can only, people know how to stay in their lane. I sort of stay in my lane, even though I grew up in the garment district, and I know that I grew up in retail and wholesale, and I know how important that the same breadth that I'm speaking should be right across the board, because there is no advertising, there are not enough advertising executives, there are not enough executives in retail, there are not enough, I'm not going to go to the black designer thing, because that's a whole nother story. But as far as people being hired for being capable, just hired, no, there's not enough. But the thing that we've done is we've basically just called people out. And that's the hard thing that, it wasn't hard for me, but it's a hard thing that most people think that you could do. You just name them.
Is it hard to get people to come behind you and help do that?
Not the people I've got, because it's a secret society. No one knows. The good news about that is that it basically it's people who are models, casting directors, editors, model agencies, reps. There are so many, they're all through our industry that is part of the coalition. I just never say who they are, because we need to be secret so that they can keep telling me what's going on. And we can't expose my source, as they say. But because I'm the loudmouth, representative, I can stand out there, because what's going to happen to me? They can't fire me because I have no job. At the end of the day. So that's what it is. It's that speaking out. That's the hardest thing to do. And if you speak out against a corporation, people always worry, well, can you be sued? Could you be sued? That's where people who do know something, who may be in the corporate world, it's very difficult for them. But in fashion, it ain't difficult for me. Because fashion people really don't intend to do anything. Their intention, they keep saying, oh, it's not my intention, it's not my intention. Well, then, okay, then you don't mind me saying it. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I want to know what both of you think, like, advice for people of color who want to be models in the industry but keep getting, like, turned down. Should I repeat the question?
I think modeling is one of the hardest things that a young girl can do because of the demands that it places on your life. And I think if you want, there's so much rejection, which is why my mother was dead against me being a model, and I almost had to run away and get a scholarship to Parsons in order to be able to even try. So decide what you want the money for. Decide what your goal is, so that you have something that you're working for that's bigger and more important to you than someone accepting you every day and saying, oh, I think you look nice in this dress, or you don't look nice in this dress. So if you know that you want to buy a house, or you want to pay for your education, or you want to help your parents out, that helps a lot because it keeps you going through the rejection. I think also fashion opens the door to so many other things because you see every other industry through fashion. And I was lucky enough to be able to go into television. I got to go into publishing. I got to be able to do acting. You can almost go into any other industry that you want to if you listen carefully and look at other opportunities, because modeling really is not the be-all and end-all. And I remember Bethann, I remember almost everything that she tells me. She said to me when I was leaving for Paris 30-something years ago, most people don't get rich or really even make any money out of this business. Maybe they're in for 2-3 years, they delay college, they delay getting married, whatever, and maybe they travel a little bit and they get a couple pictures and then they go home. And I thought, wow, okay, well, I better figure out what I really want out of this, and my biggest thing was, well, I want to go to Paris and learn the language. So I did that, and that was something that kept me going. But make a plan that's bigger than modeling. Fashion is a big industry. It touches every other industry. And there's lots of other jobs that are really interesting. Like a lot of these girls who go from America's Top Model, like one of them now is in brand development at Estee Lauder. And that's a job, you can keep 30, 40 years. There's places to go. It doesn't matter what you weigh or how you look. You don't have to get on a plane every 15 minutes. And you're still in the fashion industry and doing something that's creative and exciting. And good luck to you. Good luck to you. I saw you coming down the stairs. I said, who's that model? You're welcome.
Quick question. I was just going to ask you, I heard you saying that that Bethann, and both of you were saying, I wouldn't really want to be a model today, for the young people coming up being models. I was going to ask you, what do you think about the shows like Tyra Banks' show, the modeling shows? Is that helping? Is it encouraging or not? What's your opinion on that?
I think that those shows are as much about modeling as Project Runway is about being a designer. They're really about, and they're entertaining and they're fun and they're funny. I think that they give people entree. I think they give people a platform. I think they allow people to get noticed. Do they help? Yeah, I'm sure it helps some people. I mean, modeling was completely mysterious when we went into it. I wouldn't have. Like, how did you even, you had to go through the phone book and try to figure out who the agencies were. Bethann feels differently. Go ahead.
I think we have one more question right here.
Hello. So I actually have two, but I'll be brief. The first one is, how long do you think Diane van Furstenberg will continually send out that email to remind everyone to think more globally? And the other thing is that I did my master's thesis on this industry, and I looked at the cover of 6 fashion magazines: Vogue, W, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, GQ, in details, from January 2007 to December 2016. And I made note of who was on the cover. And over those years, one could see that, well, there aren't many models on the covers anymore, so I call them Muse of the Month. But the Muses of the Month of color are few and far between. And I will say that last year was a banner year for those magazines because they were more represented, but overall not. And so, do you see a change in that, or do you think that's basically going to be forever? And don't forget that from Furstenberg question.
I don't get the DVF memo, do you?
Yeah, no, I'm written in it, that's why I know. And I know that I think she's going to send out you know why? She's going to send that out always and forever until there is no more, because of the fact that it's about the health initiative. We were added to that. I mean, we inspired the whole diversity campaign, just inspired the health initiative. But because it was the health initiative and not talking about Negroes and Latins and blacks, forgive me if I said Negroes, it's a way of speaking. But because it was that, I guess you would say Vogue and everybody got behind the health initiative. But then once you became conscious of the fact of how important the diversity issue was, they added it. So she'll be sending that letter out all the time because they want people to know, about the model being too young and the model being too thin and the model did this and the model that. And none of that is my argument. She could be thin, she could be young. It's all good to me. What I don't like is that she's not looking like you. She should be a little bit more diverse. That's what I fight for. The second question you asked about the covers, I think that's going to be like that until we all just go home. I really don't think that's going to change. Sometimes they'll get a wave of some other, celebrity that they put on. I'm not about the celebrity. I don't care how many dark celebrities they put on the covers. I'm about fashion models. So of course for me, people say, oh, but Oprah's on. Oh, look, Michelle Obama, look. Oh, Venus, oh, there's Serena. That doesn't mean, that's not what this issue is about. But you know what? It's better to have some color than no color. Because it influences, subliminally, it influences people's eyes, the other, and it's very important for people to see that it's fine, it's okay. So I think the combination of, they'll probably be just like it is. Sometimes there'll be a flare of, yes, there's many more people to put on the covers. Like you said, for a long time, you and Veronica noticed that there weren't, and then all of a sudden last year was a lot, or, more than normal. Well, that'll probably happen from time to time. It's just like, it's not that it trends, but it just what's around, So, look, this is a tough game, right? You agree? I'm talking to you.
I do agree.
Please join me in thanking Bethann and Veronica.